all new members of the Planning and Community Development Committee, again, welcome. Our first order of the day will be to approve the minutes of December 9th.
Make that motion
by
to approve.
Supervisor Strow, seconded by Supervisor Beatty. All in favor?
Aye.
The interesting, today's co-star, as Gene Marlino always tells us, the rich always get a little bit richer, okay? But it had to do with, I thought, a very exciting development in Queensbury, the two hotels which were announced off Exit 18. So with great locations and great, I think they'll both do extremely well. So congratulations, John. Yeah.
Third on the line.
A third one on the line? We'll reel him in, Johnny.
What are we dragging on? I'm working on it.
That'll make Gene even happier.
Got my
okay?
best bait out there.
Okay. Very good. Why don't we just start with
You say you have a mama baby or whatever.
with Wayne, and we can get the show on the roll.
Well, good morning, thank you. As I was telling the chairman, I've got, my voice box is damaged, so I'm not gonna talk as long as I had originally planned to your.
I'll second that.
your benefit. I knew that.
I was not a New Year's resolution.
Sorry. There is, some actions I, would ask the committee to consider. The county was awarded a grant under the last local waterfront revitalization program under the CFA. I'd like to establish a capital fund to, receive those funds and set up the program, and that's item number 1 under committee action.
I'll move that.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nothing. Go ahead. Yep.
Okay, 2 and 3 are really combined on the same form. There's a resolution request form to do some transfers. The county, sets aside, money in our 80-29 budget to use as matching funds with the First Wilderness Program. That's where we'll go into this capital fund. We'll transfer those over and have them available to us, to implement the program. Also, when the budgets were set up, there was, extra money for workman's comp put in the 80-22 budget that really needs to be in the 80-21 budget, so I'm asking just to move that money over.
Can we get a motion to that effect?
I'll make that
Okay,
motion.
Supervisor Strow, get a second. Supervisor Simpson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Go ahead, Mike.
All right, there are no pending items, so if I can move into the next, in the packet that I handed out, there is a staffing chart for the office. This is to familiarize those of you that are new to the department, and those that maybe aren't so new, but we really kind of function with 7 people in the office. There are 2 full-time people, the rest are really part-timers. So there's myself and Glenda is full-time. Martin Fitzgerald is, technically he's full-time, but 2 days out of the week he does fire inspections, so he's farmed out to the building codes office, so we have him for 3 days a week. He works in project administration and programs. So we manage the geographic information system. Sarah Frankenfeld does that. She's part-time. And so that kind of just lays out our table of organization and what the areas are that we work in. The next is the referrals. Under Section 239D of General Municipal Law, the County Planning Board is required to make a report once a year to the Board of Supervisors. By resolution, the full board appointed the Warren County Planning Department staff to fulfill the function of the planning board, and so this report satisfies Section 239D. As a report to the board, there were 249 projects reviewed that were referred from local municipalities under Section 239 L&M of General Municipal Law, and there's a chart that gives the breakdown of you know, type and where they came from, what community, so. As usual, Bolton and Queensbury drive the agenda. A lot going on in Queensbury, I guess, right, John?
Yeah, that's good, that's a good thing.
Wayne,
Yes.
what are all these column headings, A, V, U, V, R, Z?
Okay, I meant to flesh those out a little more, but site plan, area variance, use variance, rezoning, conditional use, and sign variance.
Okay.
And then the last column is totals. And, also, there's a GIS update, sheet that's next, titled GIS Program Update, and that's the areas that we're working on, with, hazard mitigation plan. There is a, program that we're implementing that was, funded under a, state archives grant. That's the next one. The big item that's going on is reformatting of the enhanced 911. And that requires a parcel by parcel point identifier instead of just a street address. And so the problem with street addresses sometimes is that the mailbox is over here, but the house is over here, and people go to where the mailbox is and they never find the house because it's actually located quite a distance from where the driveway is, especially in the northern community. So the enhanced 911 will have where the actual structure is, the latitude, longitude, that will then be available in the squads and in the emergency response vehicles to actually find the exact location. There are a number of databases that the state provides us that we have to correct. They did the first flush, and so of the 50-some-odd thousand parcels in Warren County, we're finding about 4,500 of them are in error, and that we have to manually go into the database and fix each one of those. And that's what this whole process is about. And then we'll be able to buy tablets for the emergency response vehicles that will tie into the deployment of this system, and they'll have all the up-to-date information when they go out. We're also tying that into the new requirement under the building codes, fire codes, that special identifiers need to be provided for buildings that are built with trusses, and so that inventory will be part of this database that will be deployed out to the emergency response vehicles, so that if there's a fire, they know the type of structure that they're dealing with. So that's where we're working in the GIS program.
And this ties on to the sheriff department?
Yes.
Updating their New World software?
Well, that begs the question, are they updating? Because their software is 10 years old, and we really don't want to do this update for 10-year-old software on their part. So we've been in discussions with them that they really need to, their version of New World is over 10 years old. And we would like them to update it such that when we do this revision, we do it once instead of having to do it if they upgrade in the next year or two. So we've kind of held off doing the final deployment on this to know which kind of architecture we need to put into the database, because the systems are different.
And now you're running one of these New World systems through your office already?
We can update the New World system. We do not have it for what the sheriffs have.
Okay.
The only New World system we have is for the financial side of it, not for the 911. We can update it, but we don't use it per se.
Wayne, the practical reality of what you're doing, just in terms of an example, we have a fire call. So we're saying that what's going to occur here is going to enable the first responders to more precisely, in some cases, get to that location, hopefully faster and accurately.
Yes. real dilemma here becomes the 911 addressing. Truth be known, the county should be readdressed, because it's a mess in a lot of places. You have house number 40, and then you have house number 10, when 10 should have been over here. So if you have a mutual aid call, and they don't know the community as well, they come in, they're looking over here for number 10, and it's actually over here because those address wrong back in the 70s when the system was first deployed out. So what this identifier, this new identifier in Enhanced 911 does, is it puts a point on each of the structures. It puts a point basically on each of the, if you go to Regency Apartments, they get a call, they go to the desk. This will put and we've actually done a lot of that with the town of Queensbury. It'll put a point on every door, such that if they say it's room or apartment 310, they know where to go, which building, which door, versus going to the office first, and then, because that's currently where they go. There's one address on that site. So these are the types of things that it'll correct along, stores in the mall. There's a call at the mall, they go to the office, that's where they respond to. Now, if it's, JCPenney, then they're gonna go to the other end of the mall. They'll know where to go right from the start. So that's the issues that will be addressed in this. It kind of it identifies it not by the mailing address, it identifies it by a 911 addressing point.
Supervisor Stroud.
Thank you. And I think that this new system's going to improve the situation in examples like the Queensbury school system and SUNY Adirondack, where they have one address, but several buildings throughout the campus.
Yes.
And so that this new 911 system will, if it's in the gymnasium, or if it's in the student residence area, or if it's in Washington, or whatever building it might be, it'll take them to that, because like you say, somebody from the outside doesn't know the
Right.
names of these buildings and so forth.
And it potentially can take them to a, if a building has 6 doors, it can take them to a particular door, because each door will have an address point.
Supervisor Simpson.
Is there a coordinated, push to somehow streamline between the postal addresses and the GIS? Because to me, where I live in Brant Lake, and you're familiar with Valentine Pond Road?
Oh, yeah.
It seems to me it would could potentially improve home businesses, because getting deliveries is a nightmare. My physical address on my deed says town of, actually Pottersville. So I can't get anything delivered, even though I live 45 Davis Road in Brant Lake. I have to coerce FedEx. So it seems like, we're doing the GPS thing, and that's a great idea. I just wonder, is this gonna evolve into everything being the same?
Well, I know Sarah took a phone call from somebody that was having some problems, and, the issue is, we provide the data to the state and to the 911. The delivery services use Delarm or some other third-party vendor.
Mm-hmm.
So their stuff is 5 or 6 years old by the time it
Uh-huh.
trickles down to them. And I don't know that there's a straight answer. I mean, the post office has their own addressing, they kind of did all the addressing back when the 911 numbers were deployed out, and that's when, I don't know if everybody remembers in the 70s when all of a sudden your addresses changed. Instead of RD1, you got a box number or a house number and everything. So, from that time on, there were some errors that were just how it was deployed back then that we're still living with, because no one likes to have to change your house number. You have to change all your paperwork, all your checks, everything. So, the reality of renumbering to actually conform, let's be real, it's not gonna happen. So, whether the state of New York will share this point data with third-party vendors, I can't answer. But the information will be there.
I mean, do you have an idea how I could 'cause it has affected me, I have a home-based business, it's affected me financially, because I order things, I buy things that, for my business, and they end up getting sent back because my deed says one thing, my post office says another thing, GPS, or the 911 says another thing. I've even had, law enforcement and we on the right road, so.
Talk to Sarah.
So I just wondered how I could,
Talk to Sarah.
Okay.
She's been dealing with this and has more information on it than I do.
thank you.
Is there a date when you think this will be completed?
Right now, in all honesty, we're kind of throttling down a little bit until we determine if the sheriff's office is going to upgrade New World. Because, we don't want to have to go back and redo what we're doing now. So, in the reality of it is, it would be this year. We just need to know which version of New World. We're really encouraging the sheriff's department to update New World, because their version is 10 years old, as I said. So, whether that'll happen, I don't know. So.
Moving on, what, is there,
All right, the other thing that we do is we administer currently 2 grant programs under the Community Development Block Grant Program. One is winding down, that's the Warrensburg Health Center. In the Health Center in Warrensburg, we've provided $350,000 of funding towards that through a grant program. And the other one that is still open that really needs to be finalized this summer is a sewer line in Warrensburg to tie in the Countryside Adult Home into the Warrensburg municipal system. So that we've been working with the supervisor of Warrensburg, with Kevin on that, and the town has actually funded the cost for the engineering, and there will be some coordination efforts to make that happen this summer. Did you have anything else to add?
No, our game plan is to get that pipe in around this spring, at least, even if we have to contract it out. The only thing I will say is we have seen a presentation on what you're talking about as far as the 911. We saw it out in Fulton County. Remember they were telling us that it comes up for the police. This is basically for the police and EMS, but it brings up on their screen in a patrol vehicle, it'll tell them where they're going, which building, what they had to watch out for when they got to the scene. So there's some other counties are already undertaking this. It's quite amazing what they can do with the technology today.
Yeah, it is. The next few pages, and I won't belabor these are our grant programs under the local waterfront revitalization program funded through Department of State. These actions are to implement the program that we have started in 1997 called the First Wilderness Heritage Corridor, and that's those communities in the county that share the Hudson River and the rail line corridor. And also through a memorandum of understanding, we have partnered with the Saratoga County communities of Corinth and Hadley, town and village of Corinth. So we have received funding, and the work items are here. My plan had been to go through those, but my voice is not going to let me. The 2007 program identified here is basically complete, but we're just finalizing a few things. The 2008, 2009 also are basically, probably 90% done, and those contracts will expire this year, so we need to finish up a few items in those. And the way we work this is, the original First Wilderness Plan, which was done in 2000, with the action plan being done in 2004, we've been implementing, taking the goals and objectives out of those. And case in point, Craig, predecessor, Fred Monroe, we worked with Fred. In there was, you know, the need for an assessment of the water district in Pottersville and Chestertown. We were able to get that funded, do a engineering report on its needs. It's now in the plan update to implement that. But what we do is we find, we look at the projects, we'll ask the communities if they want to implement those, and if so, they become the partner. The county just becomes the umbrella funding agency. The towns provide the local match, that if any is required, and we provide all the administrative support and you know, provide part of the funding towards the project. So,
Supervisor Leggett?
So, Mr. Lamont, the town would come to you then if we wanted to take the next steps on, say, the water system?
I think you and I need to sit down and look at everything that we've done so far and see where you want to go with those, if you want to go with those, you know, what the next steps are, which ones you want to prioritize. What I gave most of you, or not all of you, is a thumb drive. On that thumb drive is a 187-page document, and that is the plan update, the draft that we are just completing. Probably by March, we should have it all complete. And I would ask at that point in time for the county to pass a resolution supporting the implementation of that plan. So I've given it to you to kind of peruse if you want and ask questions. It is also up on the firstwilderness.com webpage that we have for the corridor. So you can view it there, but this lets you kind of, it's a big document, and if you wanted to try to download it, it might take a bit. So I thought I'd just provide it to you on a thumb drive where you could peruse it, and we built it such that there is a list of county-wide or corridor-wide goals and objectives that cover more than one community, and then each of the towns in the corridor have their own section that they can basically take out and use as a local plan. So it's structured to be adaptable to the local needs, plus the county's, the corridor's implementation. So I encourage everybody to plug it in, and if you need to, you know, if you have insomnia, you can start reading it, and I'm sure it'll take care of that. So that's really what I have. By way of introduction, we are in the Human Services building on the 3rd floor, and you know, I would invite you all to come take a look, find your way over there, and see what we're about. I know Craig knows how to get there.
Thank you, Wayne. Is there anyone else that would like to make any comments? Ed, anything that you...
No, I think it's very important. Again, that's part of the integration with the planning, the sheriff's department, is that we need to know where addresses are from an emergency point of view, as well as from an economic development point of view. If we're trying to promote different pieces of property, that we've got the correct address and the correct people that we're talking to. So again, the technology is moving so fast in these areas. It's difficult for businesses as well as municipal governments to keep ahead of the track here, but I think this is a very important endeavor we need to continue to work on, just as when I address in a couple of minutes on the broadband issue.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any other items? Are you going to talk about broadband?
Yeah, I have a couple of items. Number one, we had a successful breakfast this morning. I know there's any day that we select seems to be a day that the county has meetings, but we had about 160 in attendance this morning to hear Heather Bichetti, the president of the Business Council, and Congresswoman Elise Stefanik was present, and had a good conversation with them on their priorities and the needs. And Congresswoman Stefanik, again, their discussion presented a very knowledgeable update on activities that she or her office are involved with. So it's obviously very helpful to have a congressional office that is in tune with the needs of, Warren County. But we have broad representation from Gary Douglas, our friendly competitor in the Plattsburgh North Country, to Washington County was present, and Ron Peters from Fulton County was there. Supervisor John Straw was there, anchored with Rachel from Queensbury, so Queensbury was well represented, and the chairman of the tourism was there with Joanne Connolly and Peter Gerard, so that was very successful. After about a year of discussions and being told by the state of New York that if we wanted to provide some traffic update along the Route 9 corridor from the outlet area all the way down southward to about where the drive-in in the former KSC's is, that we needed to go out and obtain funding from our from whatever sources we could. Warren County jumped in quickly with a commitment of $25,000. EDC has also committed $25,000, and I'm pleased to announce that National Grid has publicly announced that they will be expending $50,000 toward this study, so that we will have a $100,000 study, and that is done. We indicated that announcement just the other night at the Queensbury workshop. Our next step will be to develop a small procurement committee that will include appropriate representation from Warren County, the town of Queensbury, and also along the business sector here to examine and come up with a recommended source for an engineering consultant firm to get going. We hope to be able to do this in the first quarter so that we can start off in that first quarter or shortly thereafter with the study to be commissioned. There will be one of the keys, and John is well aware of that need of public engagement with the property owners, including Warren County with their interest in your properties, but also the business owners along the outlets as well as further south of the municipal center. So it's going to take a very good cooperative effort. At the end of the day, we want a program that will improve traffic, improve the emergency flow of vehicles, as well as taking a look and doing more with the bicycling and pedestrian in the area, which was not really looked at. And as Paul has reminded me, the prior study really didn't address some of the current needs that Warren County is looking at to try to develop the property across the street here. So I think time is overdue. We appreciate National Grid's commitment and the commitment of Warren County to get this off the ground. John, did you want to add anything to that?
No, you did very well, Al.
Coming from a retired teacher, thank you. I appreciate that. So that is going to be off and running. Secondly, one of the things I want to just remark on, we have felt that tourism and economic development are not two strangers. They're not two tracks, going in different directions. We're really on one track, and I've been very pleased over the past several weeks to be working closely with Gene, the chair, and also members of the tourism department. One of our recent undertakings is the new travel guide, which was put together with Peter Gerard's design and so forth. And here we worked with them and has come up with a ad campaign for these kind of brochures. Obviously, part of our job is to bring more people into the community, the tourism, and also to do that. But once we get them there, we want them to spend their dollars at variety of tourist attractions and spend some time in bed and breakfasts around the area or hotels, and also to try to get the imagination of any business owner. And so our theme here is imagine locating your business in Warren County. And we highlight some of the businesses and identify some of the potential incentives and our proximity to the area, just to get their attention to start thinking about. And again, fine, we get a business that's located, first thing they'll say to me is, well, I was up in Horicon, I was over in Warrensburg, and I didn't have any broadband connection. I had very limited, it was like a dial-up. Now you imagine trying to download a 187-page document in Warrensburg and Hebron, in Washington County and some of these other outlying areas in Horicon, over in Stony Creek. Maybe after a day you might get page 2 and 3 done, downloading. And it's not a luxury having broadband, or important cell coverage. It's important from an emergency point of view, it is important from the existing businesses that are here, and it's important for us to attract, for that these businesses, people that come up here for a short vacation, if they can't get coverage, they're not gonna come back. And particularly if they bring along their teenage kids, you think they're gonna wanna stay more than one day if they can't download what is out there? It's 2016, it's a whole different generation out there that we have to appeal to. And, while we are encouraged with some funding that, has been announced, by the governor's office and by the Public Service, Commission and by the Federal Communication Commission, there is a plethora of rules and regulations that we have to go through in order to get this. I had a brief conversation with the Congresswoman afterwards, I talked to Senator Schumer yesterday, that we need to all get on the same page, because within Warren County, certain areas, it would appear right now, under the initial brush through on this, that Frank Thomas in Stony Creek is gonna come out on top of the heap because of the location that is in the frontier communication area. And with all these rules and regulations, the area that is covered by Frontier is probably gonna have the first shot at some of these funds. However, what we're going to do is we have mapped all of the need areas within Warren County, and working again with the supervisors, and village officials, in Lake George, we will put together, a map, but more importantly, locations, and submit that to the Public Service Commission, submit that to the governor's office, and indicate these are our priorities that we need to go after. So we need to be doing this in the first quarter, of this year. Also, because of the FCC monies involved, we need to be reaching out to school districts and libraries, because while they may have high speed right now, chances are that that high speed is done at a rental basis from one of the providers. So they may be paying a fairly decent charge for that high speed. Through some of these programs, there's an opportunity for the libraries and schools to be able to have that replaced with their own system in conjunction with others at a much more economical price. Also, what Ontario County has done over the years is they started very smallly. Ontario is stuck out there between Buffalo and Rochester, outside of Rochester. They have now a multi-county open access system, which means several providers can come in and utilize those lines, pay funds to an entity that is managed by a private sector that's created through a local development corporation. We'll talk more about that, but overall, they've been very successful. And so that's a model that, as an alternative, we're going to have to work at. Providers are in the business to make money. So are they going to invest a few dollars in Warrensburg or Stony Creek, or are they going to go closer to Queensbury or Glens Falls or down to the Capital District? We know what that answer is right now. So we have to take a page from 1936 of the Electrification Act, and we have to look at ways to supplement these federal and state funds in order to get this system up and operating for our residents, for our businesses in the area. So that's another important priority, along with getting our traffic study underway as well. But the timing is good because of the recent announcements for the federal and state monies in those particular areas. One other thing with the tourism that I just want to mention, that one of the final items that came out of our marketing report was to look to attract other events to the airport. And we had mentioned earlier, late last year, the effort that the tourism department, that Ross Dewberry is making, Rich Aviation, and the EDC, and working with other supervisors in putting in a bid for a regional fly-in in 2017 that would bring in hundreds of planes, passengers and visitors to the area. So we've had a couple of conference calls with the AOPA organization of the Operators and Pilots Association, and we expect that they will be visiting our area probably in February or March, so that we need to be putting together a little bit of a presentation. It will be over a weekend in 2017, probably in July. The tourism department has advised that should be very helpful and provide a healthy lift for our economy, if we're able to be successful in bringing this in. But again, that's the importance of being able to work collaboratively together between EDC, Tourism Department, our airport. And again, that was one of the results that came out of our marketing, committee from the airport that expired, but perhaps we should be looking at ways to recreate that or have a new kind of committee follow up with that, because I think some good ideas. I think we had many more supervisors attend our marketing committee over at the airport than that were actually on the marketing committee. So I think that was a good thing for the county supervisor to have taken that marketing for that. We're looking at some other different marketing ideas in conjunction again that we'll work with the tourism and the airport committee on as well. Again, our task at EDC is to bring more people and employment and jobs to Warren County, as equally retaining jobs, in the area. And finally, I just want to note that we are so pleased to see the success of one of the newer industries in our area, and that is Apex Solar. They have 132 employees that are scattered throughout the area, headquarters in Queensbury, but they have just come up with some significant designations and awards out of the top solar magazine. #1 installer of residential solar in New York State. Now, they not only solicit directly, but they also work for their competitors in one sense, Solar City and others. So they have come up with a very, I think, unique business plan, that they are getting revenues from their own customers, but also because of their expertise and their good exposure throughout the area, they're picking up substantial business at a better cost than their competitors are. So that's a great business model. And we have the other side of that positive. Again, it's a local company that's kind of grown out of the dairy industry into the newer generation with Stan Dobert and their other staffer that has many local people connected to it. So I just want to point that out to highlight as one of the real successes in 2015 has been their rise to the top with that. And again, they have hired I think 2 people from the EPA job training program that work over at their facility, and they wrote a follow-up letter for us that we submitted as part of our application for another round. And the other success, we got a lot, but the other success would go to the north, and Etain facility in Chester is doing great guns up there through the Peckham family. 25 well-paying jobs are going to be up there. And they've had to upgrade their facility there, and it's a nice-looking facility up there now, Craig.
Right.
So, those are a couple of little activities that...
Well, thank you very much. I probably know a little bit more about Apex Solar than most people. My son Brent is sales manager, and he of Apex Solar, and people that drive past that organization, they kind of say, wow, how many cars are parked out in this facility these days? In there, as an aside, also, they minimally, as an organization, pay their employees $15 an hour. Which I find, very impressive. So there's no employee at Apex Solar that makes less than $15 an hour. And that goes into some of the framework and some of the certification of that Ed was talking about. The 2 principals at Apex, pretty impressive. One is a master plumber, one is a master electrician, and it's not unusual to see Stan or Greg on a very cold winter day up on a roof, ensuring that the solar panels are put on correctly. So that's a great story. It's an organization that really knows what they're doing. So, go ahead. Yes.
Resident in town contacted me yesterday, have a business, and they're anxious to get broadband. what can I tell them?
We will, number one is, if they have to contact me, is for anybody that contacts a supervisor, they should, pass that information on to me. We're collecting that, but a letter, a personal letter, doesn't have to be long, or an email
Okay.
indicating the, need for broadband service, whether it's, personal, but obviously what strengthens our case is for a business. That they cannot, the type of business that they're in, and their frustration, and also the provider. Is the provider Time Warner in Chester, is it Frontier, or?
We have Time Warner.
Yep.
And we also have Frontier.
Okay. It would be helpful to designate who the provider is.
Okay.
So what we're gonna be doing is going back to those providers and saying, these are areas that are our priorities, and what is your position going to be? So it would be helpful to identify the respective provider.
Thank you.
The other one I just want to quickly mention, that connects two communities, Queensbury and Glens Falls, is Just Water. In terms of after, I think the springtime, they will be essentially in all stores in the country. They have an exclusive right now with one franchise, and after that expires, they will be around. They are in Hannaford, on Queensbury right now at 99 cents a bottle, which is a pretty good price. But again, the collaboration with Just Beverage and between the town and the city, and taking a vacant former church and putting it back on the tax rolls again, kind of hits another point that we're trying to make collectively, whether it's Glens Falls or Warrensburg or wherever, is to take and utilize buildings, and particularly in areas where you do have some land use restrictions. If we can retrofit and work on a building that can be brought up to code in an existing area, that is helpful and less headaches for the business owner of trying to go back to APA and start on no fresh piece of property.
Just piggybacking on what you just said, their model, I think, is a very impressive model from the perspective of, from a corporate perspective, trying to locate in areas that a little bit distressed, maybe in inner city areas. So I think that was part of the motivation to locate in Glens Falls. Another component of these folks is that their objective is to do solar on all of their installations ultimately throughout the country. And I think the last component and the thing that I think they have I don't know if it's the exclusive right, but the ability to sell their product in all of the Whole Foods throughout the country. And I believe the rationale for that was the fact that their packaging is disposable, degradable, and so it doesn't sit in the landfill for hundreds and hundreds of years. So, a very good corporate citizen. I think they really attempt to do the right thing.
Right, if you go onto the TMZ Facebook page, everybody probably, some of us may not be watching the TMZ at night, but I mean, that is becoming the popular social media spot. You will see where an individual who is connected to the Hollywood music scene is donating 60,000 bottles of Just Water to Flint, Michigan.
Really?
Right. There's more to the story, but but that's the interesting part as far as Just Beverage goes. So take a look at TMZ website. I've got that.
John?
And Just Beverages, who communicates with me frequently, wants to promote, since they're in the greater community of Glens Falls, Queensbury, they want to promote trail systems and things that are community amenities for residents and visitors alike to enjoy, but they want to help financially and otherwise with promoting those kind of things. Trying to be a good,
I think you're
socially responsible.
It's refreshing to see, so no question about it.
And not to prolong that, but again, it all came about because we had a former Glens Falls High School graduate promote and advocate for Just Beverage to look at Glens Falls, originally just to locate their bottling plant in Glens Falls. And they looked at a number of sites. While they were here, it was 2 years ago, actually, this week they were here. And we really basically said you should be looking at Glens Falls water. So they reversed their business model, they went to Maine, they went to Vermont, New Hampshire, and northern New York, and tested the Glens Falls water, and through, again, the cooperation with Queensbury, they're able to come about, the water tasted at the top of the list, and they've done that. Otherwise, we would have had the bottling plant, but we wouldn't have had the water or the significant impact, because they're actually, you know, paying the highest amount to a municipality for water. They're paying a percentage off the water rate, and this is the water rate that customers pay, but it's after it's been processed and includes all the other factors on it. So they're not just paying off the drilling of the water, you know, down east there, so. I think we about killed that subject, though.
Okay.
But, no, it's a very interesting story with a lot of pieces,
Yeah.
you know, to it for, for Glens Falls. And, I've got the site right here, I can pass this around on my BlackBerry.
Right.
There's another little site on that, is that the individual who is a actor, musician, is under a probationary sentencing. And, so, he says, "I'm fighting Flint water crisis, and the judge didn't make me do this," as the for full disclosure. For that. If it's on TMZ, you know it's gonna have a little, strange,
Just water under the bridge.
Very good. Are we, anything else? Anyone have any more comments? Are we?
Feel free.
Can we, get a motion to adjourn then? Supervisor Simpson, seconded by Supervisor Leggett. Okay. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Can't make these things up.
So